guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today in the Ask SSM video series, I'm going to do a part 3 or final update, we'll see about that, to a very popular video series I did back in February, which was titled, My Dad Needs Help. He's falling apart now that his marriage to my awful mother is over. And if you recall, because this was a few months back, it's about the young subscriber. He's 22 years old. He lives in Mexico. And long story short, things are really going to hell with his dad and mom's marriage. His mom, as he described, and quite accurately, is really a witch. Really is just an unloving, unfeeling woman who has always treated his dad like crap. Really a bully, if that's the best way to describe it. And also with him, not exactly the nicest person. You know, she's the type of person is never wrong, never can admit that she did any wrong, or always never accountable to anything. And out of the blue, she wanted to kick the dad to the curb and get a divorce. And he was breaking down and really taking this bad, even though he should have been doing cartwheels because she's awful. And to make matters worse, she was then bringing her lawyers involved and accusing him of all these awful things, which I can't say here on YouTube, which is complete BS. And the guy wrote in asking, what can I do? How can I help my dad? And I gave him all sorts of advice that he can do both to help his dad out, because his dad was really worn down, not coming out of bed, crying all the time, just destroyed. And also to confront the mother about, basically, you want a relationship with me, you're going to call off the dogs. And call off this BS by him, doing these awful things to you. It's a bunch of crap. Part 2 was him writing in saying that he laid down the law with his mom. And his mom called off the attack dogs, and he told his mom, give my dad a quick divorce because you guys it's not going to work, you guys staying married. Reluctantly, she agreed, and his dad was doing better. Now we're on to part 3 to let me know how things are going with his dad, things that are going on with his mom, him as well. And by the way, this young guy really has his shit together. This guy's in school, busting his butt in programming, so he can graduate, come to the U.S. and work, really trying to make something of himself. He's watching RP content for a while. In a way, he's become the parent, and the dad's the child. And so I'm really proud of him, how he's doing. Very mature attitude, light years beyond the maturity of your average young American. So we're going to pick up and where things left off and see if I can continue helping him out. Says here, hello again, SSM. This is a bit of a final update on this matter. I've heard that song and dance before, and I've had the final update to stories, but I want to keep hearing from you. As you can imagine by the distance between emails, a lot has happened, and a lot of details have surfaced about what exactly is going on with my mother. First and foremost, the divorce is finally over. Well, thank the Lord for that. I said before, the sooner this divorce happens, the sooner your dad can accept reality and move on. It took a little long, but that is the government of Mexico's fault. My mother honored what I told her about the smooth divorce. So at least that part is done with. However, there is still a point worth mentioning. She broke into the house at some point, probably when we were going hunting, which makes sense, since even though the season wasn't over, she stopped asking me through the phone when we were going to go hunting. She broke in and she took some papers, domicile proof documents, they're called here, and some ivory figurines that she kept in the drawer, which mattered a lot to her. It's undeniable it was her because nothing else was taken. She needed the documents to transfer membership of that sports club I had told you about to herself. On that same topic, I visited her a couple times in my grandma's house. Her house is becoming a mess. She's been starting to hoard again. Her room is a complete mess, and although she has all kinds of crap food stashed away in the kitchen, she also seemed to be getting a little more fit, since she's been using the sports club to go to the gym regularly. Lots of calories, but also lots of exercise. Bit of a tangent, but in my opinion, she's still worth mentioning. I forgot to mention, guys, that in the previous videos, in case you've forgotten, because it's been a few months, his mother also is a very greedy, money-loving woman. I mean, not that that's not normal anywhere else. And one can say, well, they're all that way, but nevertheless, really is a big deal for her, especially a big deal for her. Now the real meat and potatoes that have been uncovering themselves little by little. My mother is acting in a way that the more I look into it, the worse it gets. During these last few months, my dad and I have been cleaning and ordering the house. And the more we do it, the more it became clear the extent to which my mother is attached to material things. We found paper so old, the ink had completely faded away. Children's clothes that were practically eaten away by moths, all kinds of stuff that had been stored in the house with absolutely no purpose. Among the things we found a bit of a diary my mother had been keeping. Reading through it was really hard for the things that she wrote in it, especially about my dad, but also about me, just to quote a few notable things. So I'm going to stop right there before he mentions some lines written in her diary. So not only is mom really materialistic, she's also a hoarder, And I've never gotten... There's people that are pack rats, like they can't get away with anything, and then there's hoarders. Sounds like she's somewhere in the middle. Now, here are some lines from her diary, talking about him and his dad. She says, what was written in the diary said, all he ever thinks about is having sex with me. Obviously, that's the dad, not the son. If he ever crosses the line, I'll pack up my shit and leave. I want to travel the world and drive a year's car. My son is becoming a misogynist. And he wrote, sure, Mom. I should have taken that job at the UNICEF instead of marrying him. Ouch. So for a while now, she's been talking shit about your dad. And you. Labeling you because you don't buy into the crap nowadays. You don't buy into the narrative. Labeling you a misogynist. This diary, going by the dates, she started around 7 to 8 years ago, which means that at least for some time she's been planning to abandon my father, and she just took this BS argument as an anchor to justify herself, among other things. I'm not surprised. I've heard countless stories about girlfriends and wives that have planned to get rid of their guy a very long time, and they're just plan everything out, act like everything's cool, and the husbands just have no idea. Then, boom. We also found that she actually helped my aunt over in Vancouver to actually buy a larger house with a smaller house in the property. I believe in the U.S. you can call them granny huts. So my sister could use it. This didn't make sense to me at first. Why not just live in the same house as my aunt? But the details would just keep on coming. In retrospect, I should have listened to you more because my sister, who I thought wasn't as involved in all this, has actually been a cornerstone in my mother's plan all this time. Well, there's a big surprise there. His sister he mentioned in the second video because I wondered, with all the problems your dad's having and you dealing with this, do you have a sibling? And he mentioned that his sister goes to school in Vancouver. She left the country and not the best relationship with the parents, but as it turns out that she has obviously a better relationship with the mother. Shocker. She came back from Vancouver for a week to celebrate a cousin's wedding. And he says, as a small note, during this wedding, I found out that another one of my cousins, who everyone suspected to be gay, isn't so. He's just going his own way. Maybe I'm not alone in this aspect after all. Lots of guys are going their own way. Lots of guys around the world not only are not interested in marriage or relationships, but even dating. I hear stories about this all the time. Anyway, he says, and when the drinks hit, she spilled the beans in a way neither myself or my dad expected. Turns out that my mother is not paying at all for my sister's college over there. My sister got a big scholarship, and up to this point, she's been the sole responsible for paying her tuition. And with my aunt taking care of her in the house over there, my mother doesn't have to cover the costs. At first I was shocked. My mother hasn't even tried to persuade my sister into her side of the argument. But when we learned about this, it all just clicked. So your mother's claiming that she's paying for your sister, but in actuality your sister got a scholarship. So where is all that money going that your mom was claiming she's using to pay for your sister? Obviously someplace else. Mom knows what she's doing. On top of that, a distant family member, the wife of the brother of my grandma, and the one that passed away, turns out to have an incredibly important detail. My mother has been traveling. During this year's spring break, she and my mother visited Houston, Texas for a trip, and to make matters worse, she was shopping. They found my mother and grandmother in a shopping mall. They even identified my grandma on the other side by name, which makes this credible. She has been bothering my dad about college tuition, claiming she doesn't have the money and can't afford it, but she's saving up my sister's tuition and traveling abroad during this whole mess. There you go. I need money for your daughter. I need money for your daughter to pay for her tuition. He pays, and she's using it for something else. And how does your dad not know your sister has a freaking full scholarship? That's the crazy part. But you said that she doesn't talk to anybody. They're both scamming your dad. Says here, she's saving up my sister's tuition and traveling during this whole mess, as well as shopping. And on top of that, turns out she has a bit of an escape hut in Vancouver, where if she wants to just leave Mexico altogether, she'll just go there with her sister and live there. And he says, where did all that kind of money come from? An inheritance from a great aunt of mine. She's still alive, but her time is growing short due to heart problems. So she gave my mother her inheritance in life. Now that she has a more sizable amount of money in her bank, she's decided to go ahead with this grotesquely self-centered plan. Well, here's a question. if, yes, your aunt left that money to your mom, but wouldn't that consider to be a marital asset? I really have to wonder, unless it was specified. For any of you lawyers out there, that's a question I have. Because wouldn't your dad have some claim to this? I don't know. The situation was reversed. She'd want to have a claim to if your dad got it. He says, so in conclusion, it's not about cheating, which a lot of people thought his mom was cheating on the dad. It's not about her having emotional needs met or any other BS excuses. My mother's been doing this all along for one thing and one thing only: money. It is clear that she was tired of the way her life was going, which, although not rich, it was stable, and that we had a good thing going. My mother undeniably has issues, call it narcissism, call it moneyism, or whatever. It is clear she is not thinking about anything but herself and all this, and that has hurt every single one of us. Everybody in the family, and on top of it, she has the gall to have an escape plan out of the country, justifying it by using my sister. Like I told you, bro, in the previous two stories, that your mom's a giant asshole. And I know you know this, and I can say this because I know you agree with me. And this is why, in my opinion, I said from the get-go, your mom and dad need a divorce as much as possible because, and I don't need to go over everything that happened in the previous stories, you guys saw them, but the mother was just awful to the father. But his father, as you all recall, he had all the behavior, just this completely whipped puppy, this real weak-ass guy. And I made it clear, as I always do, women loathe weakness. Men that act weak, they either cheat on them and leave them, or they just treat them like complete shit, and it gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And you put that with the fact your mom's a bully, total narcissist, and your dad being weak, and there you go. So it was so important that they divorced as fast as possible, and he was holding on to hope that she'd come back, because that's all he had, and all he knew. I'm so glad the divorce has gone through fast. It goes on and says here, it's hard to believe what she has done, but at the same time I say that she makes her bed and she lies in it. The day she needs someone to help her in whatever, she can count on me being in the U.S., working my butt off and making good living for myself, instead of British Columbia, to aid her in her old age like a family's supposed to do. But hey, she wanted the family broken, didn't she? Well, I don't blame you for saying that, and you're saying that now, but that may change in 20 years when she's an old lady crying on her deathbed and you're feeling guilty, or, you know. Lastly, my dad. I want to know how your dad is doing. He's the one that's been the most affected by the situation on an emotional level. That has been the case from the very beginning. But with all the new information at hand, this has only brought him further down. I try to suggest some things he can do to find purpose and meaning again, such as perhaps buying some land near the hunting grounds that we frequent, but he seems to reject them all. Well, it looks like your dad is going back down the tubes. He was doing better for a while, now back down the tubes. But this is normal. It's normal to have a roller coaster type of reaction to these types of things. He's been with her for all these years. And now he's realizing all these things about her, that she's not who he thought she was. He says here, I can't and frankly wouldn't help my mother in any way, shape, or form. I'm a software engineer, not a psychologist. But my father has to get back on track without my mother. And that won't be easy. So I come back to this community again asking for advice. How can I help my father stand back up after all this? Thank you so much again for your help and support, and sorry about the long email, but man, all this has been a journey worth narrating. Bro, you have a lot on your shoulders. 22 years old, working hard at school, making something of yourself, and dealing with all this family crap. But you know what? You're obviously a strong guy, and this is how you can handle it. But I'm going to tell you the same thing as I told you in the previous two videos. Your dad, you can only do so much for your old man. And remember, you are the son. He's your father. So it's a delicate balancing act of telling him what he needs to know and verbally knocking some sense in him, while at the same time being respectful, because he's your dad and you should always show respect towards your elders, unless they're being abusive to you or something. And I say this, get him out of the house as much as possible. He said the last video he likes to go hunting quail. Okay, get out there and hunt quail. Get out, do things. He said it was making him feel better, and he can just take it day by day. But just hiding in his bedroom, crying all the time, feeling sorry for himself, that ain't going to change his life. That's not going to make him feel better. Everybody has a processing period where they got to let the shit out and everything like that. In my opinion, that's past. Okay, now he needs to rebuild his life. And he can do it. And I said I had faith in him before, and I have faith in him now. And you can certainly help him, and I recommended when he's ready, start turning him on to content like mine. I may not be for him. He may not like my personality, which, well, does have it. But there's other channels he might like. And day by day, watching content like this, reading up, things like that, getting out there in the world, doing things he enjoys, exercising, whatever, he will feel better. In a weird way, actually will help him realize that your mother, his ex now, is not who he thought she was. And therefore that won't be as painful realizing it like you thought you lost something. Because he didn't, because she's a really terrible person. This video doesn't make her out to be as bad compared to the other one. It revealed how scheming she is and money grubbing and all that. But the really mean shit was in the previous videos. But you all know if you remember. But your dad, if you're 22, I'm going to guess your dad's probably in his late 40s, maybe early 50s. He still has a lot of life to live. So you can't just throw in the towel now. But at the end of the day, as the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. So you can only do so much. But he has to be the one to fix himself. And he's not willing to do that. There's only so much you can do. Perhaps he could use some therapy. It's not always an option for everybody. I mean, here in the U.S., it seems like everybody's in therapy. You foreigners must think that, given the stories you hear. But that's not the case. He may actually could use some of that. Who knows? Because I know you said your grandma died recently, his mother. So that's messing him up too. Talk about when it rains it pours. But if he takes it day by day and gets out of bed and goes to his job and does things he enjoys, in time he will get better. I do recommend this, is that when he starts really healing, he doesn't race into another relationship to make up where your mom was, because that'd be a terrible mistake. And he could end up attracting the same type of woman like your mom and be the same thing all over again. He needs to work on himself and figure out where he went wrong by being so passive, letting her boss him around and all that, because clearly the way you described him, he was a weak guy. You're not like him, thank God, and you won't ever be in a situation like that. So one day at a time, and you can help him out the way you can, but you also have to take care of you. You love your dad, take care of him. You got to take care. You got to focus on school, getting your best grades, and going forth on your path. You know, you can't let yourself be held back too much because of all this drama going on. And go from there. And honestly, after what you told about your mother, backing up what you said in the other videos, I had nothing to do with her, really. And let's just see how this thing all plays out. So guys, you're watching this, let's give this guy some advice, help him out. He requested help from the community, so let's definitely give it to him and see, maybe, just maybe, you can have some ideas for him. Those of you guys have been through divorce, things that maybe, if you've been through a divorce, guys, and you went through a lot of pain, things you can tell him that will help him with his dad, maybe that will help him out, you know. This is why it's great that I do these videos, and dudes all over the world in different backgrounds and situations hear this, and you can add your 2 cents and your experience, things that I don't know what it's like. I know what it's like to be divorced, so hopefully that can help him out. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. That's pretty obvious. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.